Prime Field.
What if I told you this UConn Creighton game won't be decided by a single fancy set, or a hot shooting night, or even who runs better offense? Because right now, UConn is winning games by changing the math. Over their last 2 games, the Huskies have averaged 21.5 steals a night, 20 versus Seton Hall, and then they leveled up to 23 versus St. John's S, and they're turning that chaos into the instant offense. So Sunday, January 11th, 2026, the question isn't can Creighton execute, it's can Creighton survive the steal storm? Alright, let's set the stage. Normally, pregame talk is all about half-court offense, spacing, shot quality, who can get to their spots. But UConn has basically filed paperwork to throw that whole conversation out. Because in the last 96 hours of game time, their defense hasn't just stopped teams. It's created possessions, created fast breaks, and created easy points before the opponent can even breathe. And that's what makes this matchup so juicy. Creighton's identity is structural discipline. A motion offense that wants clean entries, clean decisions, low turnovers. So what happens when a team built on order walks into a game that's trying to create disorder on purpose? Let's talk receipts. January 3rd versus Seton Hall, UConn gets 20 steals. January 7th versus St. John's, UConn cranks it up to 23 steals and forces 33 total turnovers. That's not a cute stat. That's a system. Think about what that means. In a 40-minute college game, most teams live somewhere around the 65-75 possession range. If UConn is stealing the ball over 20 times, they're ending a huge chunk of possessions before a shot even happens. So here's the real question. If you can't even start your offense, how do you run your offense? And that's the trap, literally and mentally. UConn's pressure makes you work just across half court, burns clock, burns focus, and then suddenly the passes get softer. The handle gets looser, and the lanes start looking like highways for UConn's guards. Now here's the part that separates pressure from a weapon. Against St. John S, UConn shot 59% from the field. Why? Because live ball turnovers create the most efficient offense in basketball, numbers and transition. And the scoreboard tells the story. Fast break points, UConn 25, St. John's 2. Points off turnovers, UConn drops 46. Read that again, 46 points off turnovers. So when people say UConn is playing great defense, it's bigger than that. They're basically saying, we're going to manufacture high percentage shots by taking your possessions away. And if your opponent is trying to run a half-court motion, and you're turning it into track meets and layup lines, what's their counter? Here's what makes this terrifying for opponents. UConn's chaos doesn't turn into their chaos. In both games, Seton Hall and St. John's, UConn recorded 25 assists. So even with the pace rising, they're not just freelancing. They're finishing possessions with structure. Outlets, lanes filled, extra pass, clean decision. And then you get the most brutal number from the St. John's game. UConn forces 33 turnovers and commits only 8 themselves. That's a massive turnover margin. And that's how games turn into blowouts without needing perfect half-court rhythm. So ask yourself, if UConn is getting way more shots than you, how are you supposed to win? Every system has a heartbeat, and right now the engine is KK Arnold. Over the last 2 games, she has 11 steals. And the moment that tells you exactly what kind of night opponents are in for. Against St. John S, Arnold had 3 steals in about 40 seconds early. That's not just quick hands. That's anticipation, timing, and constant pressure. And this is where it matters for Sunday. When your lead guard is uncomfortable, everything breaks. Your spacing is late. Your sets don't start on time. Your shooters don't get clean looks. Your bigs don't get catches where they want them. So if Arnold sets the tone from the opening tip, how long can Creighton keep their composure? Now let's talk about Creighton. On paper, they're built to protect the ball, one of the better low turnover profiles, the kind of team that wants the game to feel calm and repeatable. But here's the precedent case you can't ignore. Creighton versus Marquette on Thursday, January 8th. Creighton committed 15 turnovers in a 67-49 loss, and Marquette forced 4 turnovers in the first 5 minutes. The result? Creighton's offense never found rhythm and the shooting cratered. So if Marquette can disrupt them early, what happens when they face a UConn team averaging 21.5 steals over 2 games? And now zoom the lens tighter. The ball handling spotlight swings toward freshman point guard Ava Zedeker. Talented? Absolutely. But Sunday's environment is a different kind of test, because UConn's pressure isn't just defend you, it's make you solve puzzles at full speed for 40 minutes. And here's another angle, rotation and stamina. Creighton leans heavy on starters' minutes. UConn can bring waves, keep legs fresh, and sustain that pressure longer. So when we hit the third quarter and the game speeds up again, who breaks first? Alright, prediction time. And I'm keeping it simple and specific. The game swings on one number, points off turnovers differential. If UConn gets to around a plus 20 edge in points off turnovers, this turns into a comfortable UConn win, because Creighton just doesn't generate that same kind of chaos back the other way. UConn has already shown the ceiling, 46 points off turnovers against St. John S. Creighton has already shown the danger. Offense collapses when the turnovers rise. So the question becomes, can Creighton keep turnovers closer to their comfort zone? Or does UConn drag them into the storm? Before we get out of here, we got to talk about the part people always skip when a team starts piling up steals. The coaching staff. Because here's the truth. No team accidentally averages 21.5 steals over 2 games. That's not vibes. That's design. First, this is a schemed pressure identity. UConn isn't just gambling. They're steering the ball, angling handlers toward the sideline, setting traps in predictable zones, and rotating into lanes like they already know where the pass is going. That doesn't happen without reps, film work, and clear rules. When to blitz, when to contain, when to jump the lane, when to funnel. Second, the staff has built controlled chaos, not reckless chaos. If you press without structure, you also turn the ball over and give up layups. But UConn's numbers scream coaching discipline. 25 assists in both games. And in the St. John's game, they forced 33 turnovers while committing only 8. That's not just effort. That's teaching. Spacing on the break, decision-making, and shot selection when the game speeds up. Third, this is rotation management. Here's the sneaky part. When UConn jumps on teams early, it's not just to win the first quarter. It's to unlock the bench and keep pressure fresh. That early run against St. John's, where the turnovers hit immediately, creates the kind of score gap that lets the staff cycle bodies and maintain the same defensive intensity for 40 minutes. That's how a press becomes sustainable instead of a one-quarter gimmick. So if you're looking at Sunday and thinking Creighton is disciplined, they'll be fine. Okay, but the real chess match is this. Can Creighton solve a pressure system that has been coached into muscle memory without giving UConn the one thing they're hunting for? Live ball turnovers? So here's the biggest takeaway before Sunday, January 11th, 2026. This isn't just UConn playing great defense. This is UConn using defense to control possessions, control tempo, and basically print points without living in the half court. And with KK Arnold driving the pressure at the point of attack, the Steel Storm isn't a nickname. It's a game plan. Now I want to hear from you. What's the one thing Creighton must do to handle UConn's pressure? Slow it down, spread the floor, or attack it with speed? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you want, tell me your predicted turnover number for Creighton, because that might be the whole game right there.
Prime Field.